I want my grandkids and great-grandkids to read, oh my gosh, look what Tosh tried. Whether it failed or just dominated, look what he was willing to risk and try. You just want to do something. You're on this planet. You might as well leave a mark. You might as well do cool things. And even just growth. Growth comes from doing hard things. Mm-hmm. I've never regretted doing something that was hard.
You're listening to the Reed Fletcher podcast. Today's episode was really awesome. I got to hang out with Tosh Mackintosh. Tosh is my old boss. We met when I was doing summer sales. He was the regional manager at the time. He's now the VP of sales at Aptive Environmental, which is a door-to-door pest control company. He's a really awesome guy, really great winner's mindset, and it's an awesome show. I hope you like it. Tosh, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Super excited to have you on here. I met you because you were the regional manager when I started here at Aptive.
Yeah.
2015, I think.
Yep.
And since that, it seems like it's just like exploded.
Yeah, we were already on some good growth, but it's just kept growing, gotten bigger and better.
I mean, technically, I guess when I started, it was Altera. But then like 2 weeks later, they changed it to Aptive, and I had no one told me. So I came in, all the signs are different. But give us like a little bit of context for what it is that you do and like a little bit of background on you just to get started.
So my fancy title is I'm the VP of sales at Aptive. There's a few of us. And so I'm over a good chunk of the sales organization of the company. Mm-hmm. And then I have some more roles that are kind of corporate roles. Like I'm over incentives and tournaments and stuff and different things for the whole company. But my main job right now is to support the sales leaders, help them in training, help them in recruiting, just help them with anything they need.
Mm-hmm. And now is that the sales leaders for the whole company or like your downline?
Specifically my downline, yeah. Okay. The other stuff, incentives and tournaments and stuff is for the whole company, but yeah.
How long have you been with Aptive?
I was just thinking of this. I was boating and telling someone the other day, and I'm not sure if it was 9 years or 10 years, and I should know that. But it's one of those two.
Well, it's kind of hard to keep track because, like, when do you actually start? You know?
Yeah, exactly. I started right after a summer. I think that is kind of the thing. I got on board with them right after a summer. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really been 10 years, but 9 summers.
Okay. But you didn't start with Aptive?
Correct. I was 6 summers with a different summer sales company before that did Dish Network and DirecTV door-to-door called Lynx. Yeah.
Do you remember who recruited you for that?
Yeah, my cousin. So
yeah. Was he good?
Yeah, I mean, well, he had never done it, but he's a good guy. So I mean, my kind of how I got into the whole world of summer sales. I got back from my mission, and my cousin Seth was on BYU's baseball team, which was kind of his dream. His dad played pro baseball and stuff like that. But Seth got engaged and realized, hey, I need some money. Yeah. Like baseball's fun, but I need some money. So he kind of looked at different options of how he could make some good money. And he decided he was going to go and knock doors and sell for a summer. I got back from my mission. We were cousins, but close friends too. And he's like, Tosh, you should come sell with me. And I'm like, no, I'm not, I knocked enough doors in England. Yeah. Like I'm not knocking again. But then as my job options kind of became available as the summer got closer, and I was weighing how much I would make versus how much I could make selling. And I had this idea of my high school summers were incredible. Yeah. And I had that idea, but as the summer's getting closer, all my friends were getting internships I could just see the writing was on the wall that my high school summers were over. Yeah. And so I kind of reached out to Seth and said, hey, I'm actually interested in hearing a little more. Because when I was weighing my money options and my fun options, I thought, hey, this probably is the one thing that makes the most sense.
What did you think you were going to do for a career before? Did you have a trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I probably had 4 different things that I thought I was going to be one of them. Mm-hmm. I've always thought I could do well at sales. Mm-hmm. And so real estate was something that I thought I might get into. Mm-hmm. I also wanted to be a lawyer or, a sports agent. Yeah. I was super into sports. And I was kind of one of those guys, well, if I'm not going to play professionally, maybe I could be in that scene. Uh-huh. And so, I wasn't like super narrowed in on what I wanted to do, but it was going to be one of those things probably coming off my mission.
It seems like people that do well, specifically in summer sales, there's like there's like a type of person who's a combination of driven, competitive, and sociable.
Yeah.
You know, and because you get all of those in other fields, you know, you get like a lot of driven people who are doctors.
Yeah.
And not to say that they're not sociable, they're usually not as money motivated, I found.
Yeah.
But like the people that were sporty in high school, the people that are like competitive and kind of have that like fun, playful edge, they get drawn for whatever reason to sales. I don't really know why.
100% agree though. Like I tell people that I was ultra competitive. I mean, sports were my life growing up. Not just watching them, but I mean, I competed and traveled nationally year round and things. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big itch that I kind of have is competition, and summer sales definitely scratched that itch where it's very competitive.
Yeah.
You know, every day it's how many did you do? It's your team versus the other teams. And so it definitely became my new sport. And I've had that conversation with my wife a lot of times in that there's some jobs that could I have done? Sure. But that I wouldn't have got that competitive aspect. Like doctor, for instance, I have friends that are doctors and love it, but there's not a competition about it.
It's
It's hard to
if you think of a competition, it actually might make you a worse doctor.
Yeah, that's not the vibe. That's not what. And it's not only competition against others, but even I thrive under jobs where there's competition against myself, like to better my year. And to do better numbers, better stats, better results, better ratios. Yeah. And that's the kind of job that makes me excited and let's go. Yeah.
It's hard to transition out of sales because it's so cut and dry. You know, like you come home at the end of the day or the summer and you're like, okay, I got 350. That's exactly how good I did. And that's exactly how much I'm worth. You know? Yeah. And then you go get a manager job and someone else gets the promotion instead of you. And you're like, well, am I better than that person? You know, do I deserve that promotion? I don't know. Like they managed better. It's hard. Yeah. Because sales is so objective. It's kind of addicting how objective it is because it's just like I won or I lost, but at least I know.
And like I thrive under that aspect too, in that like previous I'd worked different jobs where at an hourly job, everyone thought I was lazy. And I was. Like my parents growing up, my dad was seriously worried in the laziness of his son. But I would say that I'm just hyper rational. You know, like my dad said, hey, I grew up in kind of a farm scenario. I grew up in Lehigh. You grew up in Lehigh. But I grew up in a very different Lehigh. Right. Like I grew up in rural cowboy Lehigh. And so we had a barn and an arena. Yeah. Okay. We had tons of horses. And one summer my dad told me, hey, I got some bids on painting the arena. And I don't even remember what it was good, what those amounts were. But he's like, but I'll pay you 3/4 of that if you paint it this summer. And he envisioned this taking me the whole summer. Like it was a big arena and we had like around our acreage there to paint all the fences. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And then that next day I called like 20 guys and told them, hey, I'll pay you this amount per hour. And we knocked it all out. It took like 2 days. And my dad paid me the money, but he was so mad that I'm lazy.
You outsmarted him.
But at the end of the day, like, that's just how my mind works. And what I got on that story on is when I had an hourly job, I would feel like unless I had ambitions to get promoted, I felt like my smartest move was just to do enough to not get fired. Like, cause if I'm getting paid when I was getting paid, $9 an hour and the guy next to me is getting paid $9. Yeah. If I'm busting my butt and making the company tons of money, I'm still getting paid $9. Yeah. And this guy at the call center I was at who was watching TV shows and rolling cigarettes, he's also getting paid. And so like, I didn't like that. I would come home and feel like I wasn't pushing myself. I wasn't progressing. It doesn't feel good to not work hard, but that was the rational move. Yeah. And that's another thing I'd say that I liked when I went out and sold is that the rational move was to work as hard as I could and to outwork everybody else, because by outworking everybody else, then I made more money and got more sales. Yeah. And so I feel like I was destined for a job like it just clicked where, hey, this is what brings out the best version of me.
Yeah, I think a lot of jobs accidentally incentivize totally the wrong behavior.
Yeah.
Like if a job tells you you cannot leave until 5 o'clock, but also you cannot be seen like dilly-dallying.
Totally.
Then you're like, okay, so I have enough work that I can get done in 3 hours, but you're incentivizing me to suck
totally
at it, right?
Yeah. And to fake it,
Right, and to fake it. And so, and I'm not saying it's not like cut and dry, like usually the hardest workers do get promoted.
Yeah.
It's definitely not perfect.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, political side to it, but it's hard for me to rationally to wrap my mind around like, okay, so what's actually the best thing for me to do here?
Yeah.
And whether or not people admit it, the best thing is usually to look good.
Totally.
Be seen working, get all your work done, show up on time, but there's no point a lot of the time if you're working at Panda Express to bust your butt,
Yeah.
I actually used to work at Panda Express. That's why I bring that up.
Yeah.
But, and that's why I think too, after doing Aptive, it's weird, like if you're a doctor, again, using that example, or a lawyer, isn't it kind of strange to think that like by there being more sick people, you're actually doing better? I know that they don't think like that, but
yeah, especially with doctor, like if they were trying to be ultra competitive and they're like, let's get more patients through, they could be a worse doctor like you said.
Well,
and how do you compare, even comparing to others, like who does a better knee surgery? Like how do you quantify that?
And is it quality? And like you said, how do you know? Is it quantity? Like, okay, I live in an area with a lot of people with arthritis, there's no way. And I think when it comes down to it, it probably just means that the people that are drawn to that career probably don't think that way.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, why I'm not drawn to that type of career.
Yeah. And I think they've got a lot of them, it's to do the greater good.
Yeah.
A lot of them, it's to make a lot of money. Who knows? But I think just different humans are wired differently. And so I think that's why we need jobs that work with different humans.
Yeah. And I think so in my opinion, something like Aptive is like which brain is which? One of them is creative and one of them is like rational. I think right brain is.
Yeah. I think so.
Creative. I don't remember. So whichever one is creative, the rational one, let's say it's left brain. Aptive is like the ultimate.
Totally.
Like left brain.
Yeah.
It's like the most rational thing. It's like I put in this much work, I get a commission on this many sales. Like every hour is tallied, so it works really well. I think especially for people that are very meticulous, systematic, and competitive. But then the right brain people, they look at that type of a job. And they just can't get it, They can't see, because my siblings are very creative, like the actors and filmmakers and stuff.
Yeah.
And when I talk to them about it, there's no creation. The world is the same. Yeah. And those types of things, which to me sounds silly, but the push and the pull makes it interesting.
100%. Yeah. No, it's not for everybody. And that's what I tell people all the time, that it's a grind, and there's a mental aspect that is not healthy for some people, that there's zero money unless you're producing, and you start every day at zero. Yeah. And it really takes someone that's willing to bet on themselves. Mm-hmm. Just because that's really what you're doing. If you're doing a commission job, you're really betting on yourself, and that's not for everybody. And so not everyone should try summer sales. Like it has to be the right type of person.
I feel like a good analogy, and not to get too political, but people that I think when you compare capitalism and socialism, someone who thinks a lot about socialism, the idea is I might not win. I probably won't. Yeah. Maybe the system is rigged against me. So why don't I guarantee myself a measly average, or in other words, why don't I go get an hourly job? Yeah. It's kind of a contrived example.
No, but I think it hits the nail on the head. Like the people that are choosing this are people that are willing to bet on this. And same with capitalism. Yeah. People that are willing. It's really, the other side of that coin is really socialist people are really risk averse. Yes. In what I graduated from BYU in economics, and in one of my econ classes, they talked about, like, I love school teachers. At one point, I wanted to be a school teacher, but at the same time, that's like the most socialist job out there.
Right.
Where they all get paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's not based anything off of performance.
Mm-hmm.
And what they looked at from a risk aversion standpoint, it was something like 80% of school teachers are either a teacher within 50 miles of where they grew up or within 50 miles of where they went to college. And I thought about my teachers and the teachers that I know, and that's true with all. And the reason why that matters is because that's a test of risk aversion. If someone's not willing to move away.
Yeah.
And so he was just, the data just really shows what you said, that people that are afraid of risk, they gravitate a lot more to just equal pay jobs where summer sales and a commission's on the opposite end of that. We're people that we're not afraid to move.
No.
We're not afraid to risk, and we're not afraid to take that risk if there's going to be a high enough reward.
I think that's really interesting. I wonder if it's kind of a chicken and the egg type thing with personality. Like someone who's really risk tolerant and someone who's very confident in the fact that they'll be able to bet on themselves. It makes you wonder where along the line they took the risk that paid off.
Totally.
That, or the reverse of that. Because, it's hard to say, like I just took the chance to do it, but then because I did it, now I'm way more risk tolerant than I was, I thought about, I should invest and I should do a podcast. And you have all these ideas because when you start to think what's the best that could happen, then you start to, I at least get my engine churning, And then when you start to think what's the worst that can happen, all of a sudden you look for the minimum amount of pain that you can basically live off of.
Totally. Yeah.
Like find a job that will avoid failure, avoid embarrassment, and make me enough money that I can avoid that.
Yeah.
Rather than like, maybe I'll be totally embarrassed, maybe I'll suck and I'll move to California and get zero sales and lose all, everything. But maybe I won't, and I wonder if you're born with that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Or maybe it is like you said that some risks paid off early, or maybe you observe it through your parents. I will say I'm biased, but I'm all about the risk takers. Like that's
Me too.
People I respect, and people that built something in this life are people that have taken, and I remind myself of that when I'm looking at a decision and should I do this or should I not, I always, say I'm going to go down shooting. Again, a cowboy Lehigh kind of comment there.
Are your parents like that?
My dad started his own company. He had his own, and my mom, and both of them.
What type of company?
So construction. So he ran his own construction company that he owned for a long time, and then now he's in sales and a commission, 100% commission job. And
I think just taking the risk teaches you a lot too, because I found it's not always just, hey, I took a risk and I succeeded, so I'm more confident. Sometimes it's, hey, I took a risk and I failed and it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, totally.
It didn't ruin me.
Yeah.
And I can try it again.
Amen.
I don't know. I've been trying to adopt that. It's easier said than done. But a lot of times there's no reason to not try something. But it's like there's this little voice way back in your head somewhere that's like, well, maybe someone will put a hate comment on Facebook if you post that. Or maybe someone will laugh at you if you're at the gym. That stuff never happens,
For sure.
Like never. Like my entire life, I've never tried something and had the scene where everyone's pointing and laughing at me.
Or no one talks like amongst friends, like, oh, did you hear so-and-so tried to start his own business and failed? What a loser. Like that doesn't happen. Like people respect people that take and they're trying.
Yeah.
And when I have that negativity, that voice telling me not to do something, a thing that I'll tell myself and try to look at myself to make decisions is when I write my autobiography at the end of my life, which way here would be the better chapter? Yeah. And would it be to take the safe route and do everything the same as everyone else? And the answer to that is no. That's a boring autobiography. I want my grandkids and great-grandkids to read, oh my gosh, look what Tosh tried. Whether it failed or just dominated, look what he was willing to risk and try. And I feel like that helps me push myself in positive ways.
Do you listen to David Goggins at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You read his book?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, loved his book. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
What you said reminded me of, he talks about how he's like picturing the pearly gates, you know, on his death. And he goes there and he meets God and God's like, David, what did you do with your life? Like, I have this whole list of things that you were capable of that you never took the risk, you never did. And he says, like, mother effer, I want to show up and I want to go to God and I want to look at that list of things I had the potential of and then have him look at my life and be like, oh my goodness, you did this much. Like, I had no clue you're capable of so much.
Totally.
And it excites me too. I mean, I think the word legacy is kind of like, it's kind of cheesy and kind of like presidential, but it is something I feel that drives a lot of people more than they know.
Yeah.
Especially risk tolerant people. They want to be remembered.
Yeah.
You know?
You just want to do something. You're on this planet. You might as well leave a mark. You might as well do cool things. And even just growth. Growth comes from doing hard things. Mm-hmm. I've never regretted doing something that was hard.
Me either.
And so, like, you just come out of it a better person, even if it didn't go the way you wanted it to.
I remember, when I was knocking, my last summer was 2 summers ago, Chicago. I remember you sent out a letter, because you would send out like the weekly regional letters. Uh-huh. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong about the story, maybe it was your cousin or you or someone that was like a sail away from a big milestone, like 300. And it was like the last day of the summer, they're at 299.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's one sail. And they went and watched the movie or
yeah,
something.
Yeah.
So I had that exact same scenario in my summer, and it was the exact same thing. With a tiny bit of risk because we had to get back because something was school. I had to be back even earlier than I was anticipating. So it was like, we really need to pack. It's a Saturday. I needed 3 left. And I was thinking about that story. Like, I might not get 3. You know, like 3 on a Saturday is a good Saturday. Yeah. And I just had that thought, you know, like what is this going to, like, what am I going to be able to tell myself? You know, who am I going to be able to describe myself as to myself if I just don't do such a simple little thing, you know?
No, I 100%. It was my brother-in-law. Okay. And it still probably bugs me more than it bugs him. I don't know. But his goal was 300 the whole summer. Uh-huh. And then on that last day when he was so close, he decided, you nailed it. You remembered. I'm glad and flattered you remembered that.
Yeah, well, I had the same number. For me, it was 300. It was the exact same thing. And I had those thoughts. You know, it's like it's so easy to have those creep in. Like, oh, I could just be sitting at home or I go to a movie. What does it matter? Yeah. 3 more sales, like a couple $100 more bucks.
I just think it comes down to, I've had things in life where I almost hit my goal. Mm-hmm. And that does not feel anywhere. Your weak-mindedness will try to rationalize, oh, that was close. That was still impressive. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't feel anywhere the same as when you actually hit your goal. And so it just pains me that he did that. And he can't ever say he hit his goal. He was 1 away.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you want to be someone that just busts through it because it feels so much better.
I kind of feel like the universe, like when you go after something like that, something that only matters kind of for the symbol, I guess. I think the universe like notices that in a weird way, like, hey, and I guess the real rational way of saying that is you notice it about yourself, and it reminds you the next time you go to take a risk, like, hey, last time I did that, last time I was the person that decided to put my foot in the fire. And so it gets a little bit easier. You convince yourself each little tiny risk that you take that is actually who you are. Yeah. You know, and then it becomes who you are.
100%.
I remember that day, it's kind of funny. So I needed 3. I was at like 297. But even if you get 3,
you still got to get
serviced.
Yeah.
And so I got out really early, like 8 in the morning on a Saturday. Yeah. Everyone was so mad. And I was like, I gotta get at least 3 same days. So I went out. I was like, you know, not going super well. I think I ended up getting 3 pretty early, like maybe by like 11:30, 12, and we'd go till 4. Yeah. And so I called my wife and I was like, okay, what do you think I should do? I got 3. One of them's not scheduled till Monday. And she's like, it's your last day. Just stay till 4. Okay. So I knock and I get nothing.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, oh, this is the worst. This is the worst. And then finally, like right before 4 at like 3 o'clock, I get one. I'm like, okay, I got 1. That'll kind of be the
feels
buffer.
Better.
And it's like 3:45 and I call her again. I'm like, hey, should I just come home? It's like 15 minutes. Just keep knocking. It's your last day, probably ever. Okay, I keep knocking. It's 4:00, nothing. Walk back to my car and someone stops me in the street. It's like, hey, I saw you earlier.
No, that's
and
awesome.
The last one was like the baddest laydown ever. That's what I mean. Like, I think maybe a corny term, especially to apply to sales, is like tender mercies.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it did kind of feel like that. Because it was like, okay, like I did all this extra stuff. And they're like, well, just, here you go. We'll throw you like this little sale.
So I've got a buddy that I sold with in my early years. And now he's a college basketball coach. His name is Brian Swindlehurst. And he would always call it the gods of hard work. Mm-hmm. I just believe in one God. But the principle of what he was saying, I saw it. He's like, whenever I tell myself, I'm going to knock 5 more doors before lunch. Or one more. He's like, that's when the sale happens. And he's like, I feel like it happens at an irrational, or it's just a higher rate than it should when you're willing to push. He's like, the gods of hard work will reward you. But I don't know what it is. I don't have a problem with thinking that it might be the God of this universe trying to teach us that there is power in hard work. Mm-hmm. It might be a mental thing that because whenever you're doing something extra, it gives you this confidence like, hey, I'm the man.
Yeah.
I can do hard things. It might be, who knows what it is, but like your story, I've seen that over and over.
Yeah.
People that are willing to do that extra mile, a lot of good happens in that extra mile compared to the other miles.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I've noticed that a lot since then. And so what I did with the summer, I was like, I would set these extreme rules for myself, like the biggest tyrant on myself ever.
Yeah.
Because I realized quickly, if I gave myself a little bit of leeway, it would just eat itself. Like it would just eat me up. Like one rule I always had was, as soon as I parked from lunch, I immediately got out of the car.
Yeah.
And like, to someone who hasn't done it, that probably seems a little drastic. Like I don't listen to a song. I don't check my phone. But you start to kind of negotiate with yourself a little bit.
Totally.
Like, I listen to one song. Like, what's the difference between one song and another song? It'll help me. I'll be more relaxed.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon it's a half hour.
Totally. And then it turns into you're taking a nap every day after lunch.
Yeah.
Like my wife teases me, and I think part of it drives her nuts and part of it she respects. But that with me, I'm either all in with something or I'm out.
Me too.
And it's like dieting or like...
Yep. I have to do extreme.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's no balance. She's like, why can't you just find a balance? Because I don't have balance.
Yeah.
Like if I'm trying to balance, then I'm eating multiple milkshakes in a sitting.
Yes.
Or I have rules and I don't break them. I don't do cheat meals. I am holding on to those.
I completely agree with that. I actually think it's easier to do 100% than 80%.
Yeah.
Because then you're trying to decide, like, well, I had the milkshake last weekend, but like, okay, was that better than this hamburger that I could have today? And then I just lose it.
And then you're making all those decisions. When one big decision's made, then I can just stick to that.
Yeah.
But if I'm having to decide every moment in the moment, it's not going to work for me.
That's what I love about the summer was the like strict routine.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you don't have to think about when I'm on the doors. I don't have to think about, when I'm at lunch, thinking about the doors either. Like, you don't have to think about when I come back because I was so strict about it. You're right. I wear the same thing every day. Like that decision fatigue is gone because, you're focusing on like the big thing. No, it's okay.
Other random things we could dive into, talk about if you wanted, would be one. I've got like an infertility story. I've had a hard time having any of my kids, and that can be an interesting story. Yeah. I'm really into real estate and kind of have a lot of side hustles. Entrepreneurially, I've got, growing up, wrestling. Was a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
Right now, currently, I've been doing the carnivore diet for like the last 6 months.
How's it going?
It's going. I've lost 40 pounds.
40?
Yeah. My lifts have gone up. Like I can get passionate about the carnivore diet.
Wow.
So we can talk about any of these things. But
I think you messaged me about that. You saw that on Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow Jordan Peterson
Yeah.
and Michaela that talk about all
I haven't ever listened to Michaela, but Jordan. I've read his book, but that doesn't talk about carnivore. But
Yeah.
I loved that book.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that book too. It I think was one of those things that was, when something's really profound, when it sounds so simple, you're like, why did I not think of that?
Yeah.
And that book was full of that stuff. Like treat yourself like someone you're supposed to take care of.
Totally.
And when I thought about it, I would do so many things for a sibling, for my wife, for my kid, that I wouldn't do for myself.
Totally.
I'll tell them, like, what are you doing? You're sad. Why don't you exercise? Why don't you go see your friends? But then myself, I won't do those same things.
Yeah. Or you're in a bad mood. Be great. Send a gratitude text. And how often do I send a gratitude text when I'm in a bad mood? It's
really easy to tell someone, but it's a lot harder to do.
No, I've read. I love reading and listening to books. In the last year, I think last I counted, I've read 40-something or listened to 40-something books in the last year.
Yeah.
And my one that I would recommend the most is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. That's the one. It's dense. It's a little hard to read.
A little biblical in places.
And that is true. To really thrive and enjoy that book, I feel like you have to have some base religious knowledge.
Yeah.
Or else you won't enjoy it, because he weaves in religious references and comparisons throughout that. And so the only people I know that didn't love it didn't have that religious teaching base to, I feel like, help them understand what he's trying to tell them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that book. That's probably one of the top books I've read. That Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
I feel like that one, you read, and same kind of thing. So simple, but just you leave with a profound understanding of the world you didn't have before.
It's inspiring. It makes you want to push. I've always hated running. I read that book, signed up for a marathon.
Really?
That book just makes you do stuff. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I had never ran 4 miles. I had never ran 4 miles in my life. And I've always told everybody I'm not a runner.
Yeah.
And then I read that book, and then someone said, hey, we should do a marathon. And my first thought again was, no, I'm not a runner. And I'm like, that's weak. Let's go Can't Hurt Me mindset here.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
I love
and
that.
And so, signed up for it, trained hard for it. It kicked my butt, but I have no regrets.
Yeah. That book, one thing that hit me was exactly what you just said. The idea that a part of your identity almost is decided just by what you say about yourself. Like you just said, oh, I'm not a marathon runner, or, oh, I don't do somersaults. Oh, I don't start businesses. I'm more laid back, or whatever the excuse is. I'm more of a power lifter. And then, or even not even something as cool. I don't do plays because I'm too manly, whatever it is. Something that hit me about that book was your identity is so malleable based on what you're telling yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And you can do it. You can become who you want. Just go after it.
People that are much less skilled than you are getting much more than you because they just said, I'm that person.
Yeah.
I'm that person who does this thing. And then they do it.
Totally.
It's awesome that you're in a marathon.
And a big motivator for that for me was just my kids. I wanted them to know that's just something that they forever know. Hey, their dad ran a marathon. Their dad did hard things. They can do hard things. And that was a big motivator for me too.
I love that. You mentioned real estate.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurial ventures. That excited me.
So I've always been into real estate. Even when I was just buying the house that I lived in, I was almost sad when it closed, because then the search and the hunt was over.
Yeah.
I love, there's not that many of us weirdos out there, but I'll just look at listings as a hobby when I'm not. I just love getting a feel for the market. And so, I've bought and sold land. I've bought and sold houses. I've got multi-unit rentals. And so I've dabbled in and I really like real estate.
It's funny you mentioned that. I do that too. Me and my wife all the time. We'll just go we'll look at different listings, and we're always thinking we'll find a sweet deal and we'll lowball them, and then we'll have this awesome rental property. We're actually working on our first rental property right now.
Cool.
I've been I just graduated, so we were doing student housing. And then for our first one, we're looking to house hack.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. So a duplex, and you're going to live in half and rent half?
Yeah, we've gone between duplexes and a basement apartment.
Yeah.
pros and cons to both. Have you done house hacking or anything?
No,
like that?
I wish I did, but I got it. I really dove into the game when it was like, past that stage.
Do you do rentals mainly?
Yeah.
Like fourplex, triplex?
Yeah. So a little bit of both of those. I've had good success with all of them. Buying an empty lot.
You've built?
No, I've never built. I just bought an empty lot in an area that I thought was good.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, a year later, I made $60,000.
Really?
Like, that was the easiest because I wasn't even dealing with renters.
You just pay taxes on it or something?
No, it just
expenses?
Yeah, really, it just depends on how much I sold it for versus how much I put down and things like that. But yeah, there was basically zero expense. All I did is have to pay my mortgage on it and taxes. But so it does suck paying a mortgage without rents coming in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you do it the right way, and no matter, my number one advice to anyone getting into real estate is you make money on the buy. Mm-hmm. People talk themselves into something's a good deal when it's not a good deal. Mm-hmm. And they can get emotional about it and they really want it. You've got to take emotion out of it, and you've got to just make a lot of offers that are like, you'd be stoked if they said yes. And sometimes someone says yes. And so, I bought this lot and all I was paying is the mortgage and taxes. And I was going to hold on to it longer. I knew it was a good deal, but I had people looking up who owned it and calling me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'll sit here. And they offered me substantially more than I paid a year earlier. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, that was quick money. And
Where do you get your leads from?
So
just looking?
Yeah, I use in Utah. I use Utah real estate. Okay. I also, though, most of the properties I've bought for really good deals, I have found out of the market. So just by talking to people, hey, who owns this? Do you think they're ever going to sell? Okay. Whenever I talk to someone that owns property, if I get this slight inkling they might sell, it's like, hey, text me if you ever decide to sell. Or just finding just listening. Because it's mixing a few of my passions. One of I like real estate. I'm also, I have a background in sales and person-to-person sales. Yeah. If I can find something's for sale and if I can meet with that person, I'm confident that now no one's going to want to meet with me to sell their property if they listen to this. But I'm confident that my skill set is going to come through and I'm going to be better off in that situation than they are. Right. And so if I can meet with them one-on-one and we can talk it out, I can get them to, I can walk out of there with that at a price that I know is good.
So what makes a good deal to you?
Well, it's all about if I think it has to have equity in the buy. Like, why I would never buy a property where I thought I got it for fair value. Like, fair value is for other people to buy. Yeah. Like, I need to have a number in my head of it's worth this, and I got it for substantially less. Mm-hmm. I do have some rules of thumb that are easier that are easier kind of things for if you're just getting new into rentals. And some people say this is impossible to find, but I have continued to find it, and it's made me be in a good spot cash flow wise. When I find a rental property, a fourplex, a duplex, single unit, when I'm running the math on if it will cash flow, I do it on a 15-year loan. Okay. So the interest rate's going to be lower, but the mortgage is going to be a lot higher. Right. And then I usually end up buying it still on a 30. Mm-hmm. But people can talk themselves into that it will cash flow on a 30 when it really won't. And they're not factoring in, whether it's taxes or utilities or just extra charges that their vacancy that they can talk themselves into as a good deal. If you give yourself that buffer of, hey, this would cash flow on a 15-year loan, buy it.
Then they'll for sure cash
buy it on a 30, and then you've given yourself this built-in, and especially for new people that are wanting to get into to renting, I feel like that's a really easy rule of thumb to make sure you're always giving yourself a learning curve that even if you forgot something, that you're still in a good spot.
Yeah. The only thing I always get stuck on is like CapEx, because they say like factor in when your furnace is going to go out, when your roof is going to go out. Do you actually do that with all those things?
I mean, it just depends on the age of it and stuff like that. But that's tricky. That's just all best man's guess, you know? Like,
I don't know. It again, back to risk tolerant. But yeah, it's that same thing. You can talk yourself in or out of it, depending on your risk tolerance. We've been going back and forth through this whole situation, trying to find one that we like, that we're willing to actually live in, and that all the numbers line up and everything.
So have you listened? I'm forgetting his first name. It's something Turner. He's behind Deeper Pockets, that website, and he wrote a book. I mean, if you look it up, Turner Real Estate Investing, that's the best real estate investing book I've read.
I love that book. The book on real estate investing.
There you go.
Brandon Turner.
Yes.
Great book. Yeah.
And I kind of did his philosophy in some ways before I even read that book. That I tell anyone, you should your offer to acceptance ratio should look really bad, but that means it's good. Like you should be, even if it's not, like if you're just buying a house for you and your wife, you should make 30 different offers on homes. Mm-hmm. And then one accepts and hey, we killed it. We got equity. We can sell it in the future.
We've been going through that right now. We had an interesting situation. We went and looked at a townhouse for $350,000.
Yeah.
We realized it was brand new, remodeled. So we felt like we were overpaying anyway.
Yeah.
Plus, there's not much room to get a good deal when someone's freshly remodeled.
Totally.
And so we ended up saying no. We lowballed them, but said no. Left. It was out of state. We're moving to Arizona.
Yeah.
We came back home and we see the very next day, like 8 a.m, the exact same townhouse for only $300,000. So without seeing it, we're like jumped on it and we did it. And then the story's not as glamorous. We actually just lost it today because we went through this whole thing. They were gonna pay us for some of the remodels, and then at the last minute, they were just like they just got cold feet. But it's comforting to know, like.
But that means you're on the right track. If people are getting cold feet, it means you're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
You got to be playing that line.
Someone told me that.
You don't want it where the sales come. You don't want your buys to come easy.
Yeah.
Or else it means you're overpaying and they're the ones high-fiving. You want to be the ones high-fiving after you close.
Someone told me that about summer sales too. Like, if you don't have any cancels, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
You're
not getting people over the fence. You're just getting the easiest sales out there.
You get laydowns.
Yeah.
I have been kind of obsessed with what makes those top sellers so good. Because, so I knocked with Brandon. Brandon's like a top guy.
Yeah. Even more so the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, in Chicago, I think finished maybe a little under 600.
Yeah.
But he was at like 500 halfway through the summer.
Yeah, he's talented.
But he's a terrible guy to try and emulate.
Yeah.
And so I think about like Brad Farr, Brigham Lindsay, I don't know, all these guys that are just doing these amazing things. And it's not like, okay, I sold 1 and they sold 2 or they sold 3. It's more like I sold 1, they sold 15. Like the difference for anyone who doesn't know summer sales, the difference between the top guys and the average, like there's a 1,300 sales guy and the average is like what, 150?
Yeah, and if you go down, the company has probably 2,000 reps last year. And if you go down to number 10, it's like half of what Brad did. Yeah. So they're like what you're saying, when you get, so Brad did 1,300, another guy, Chandler Bergen, did 1,200. Like there's some guys throwing down numbers. But that gap gets wide. But in answering to your question, I mean, there's a few things that really matter with this job, and they're great at all of them. Mm-hmm. One is work ethic, in that you can't sell that amount and not be always working when you're supposed to. Yeah. So if you're looking at how many people they talk to a day, they are in the top 1% of the company in how many people they talk to a day. The other side of things is attitude. Like, you ask them, what do you do to stay in a good mood? Mm-hmm. And a top rep will never tell you, oh, I don't know. Like, it just happens. Yeah. Like, you ask a top rep, what do you do to stay? They've got routines. They've got a list of, I do this, or I do this, or I do this, or I do. Mm-hmm. They've got game plans to make sure they're always in a good mood. Then there's also the skills side of things. The reality is, if someone that didn't know anything about our sale listened to the top seller and a medium seller, they're going to sound similar. Right. But someone that knows the game is going to pick up on the top sellers. Their words come a little crisper. Their nonverbals are better. Their vibes just a little bit better. They laugh at the right times. They smile at the right times. They pick up on things, cues from the customer at just a little higher level. But then that adds up. But honestly, they are better in all of those things. If I had to say just one thing that they have that the other ones aren't even close to, it would be transferring enthusiasm.
Hey, Maddie, sorry, I went off again. Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, their ability to, they can get excited about it and then transfer it to the other person. I think most sellers, and even really good sellers, there has to be a spark of interest from that potential buyer.
Yeah.
And then they close them. But the elite, they have got to a level where that person doesn't even need a spark of interest. They can create that spark. Like they seem so passionate and confident about it.
Yeah.
That person had zero interest, but all of a sudden they transfer it to that person. And that they're like, yeah, maybe I'll give this a try.
Yeah. It's like a combination of transferring an emotion and then also like complete confidence in the follow through.
Totally.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
And then also almost like a feeling of safety that they have with you. Like I noticed this, I didn't notice when I was selling, but I noticed when I was buying.
Yeah.
Buying a car, buying a house, whatever. Like the person gets me excited, but then I feel like they're on my team.
Totally.
A salesman that won't sell to you is the one that you feel is trying to like get a little bit more out of you.
Totally.
But somehow they have that knack that trustworthy or something.
And I would add another element to that. If there's and this is a chicken or an egg thing, but if they act like they're selling everybody, that you feel so much better about that. Because part of it is their vibe is, if I don't sell you, that's fine. I'm going to sell the next 4 people I talk to. Yeah. And then that makes you feel way more like, oh, maybe I should do this too.
Yeah.
Versus when someone doesn't have that and there's a desperation, then it feels like they're trying to sell for them.
Yeah.
And they're just trying like, hey, if I don't get this, like there's a desperation, there's an urgency, but you can feel like they're trying to do it for them. Where the top sellers in any industry, their vibe is confidence, but there's also an element of, if I don't sell you, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I'm still going to sell a ton of people today.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel like you trust them more.
Yeah.
And they'll answer your questions real. They'll tell you things. But to get that mindset, you got to sell a lot.
Yeah.
But to sell a lot, you've got to have that mindset. So that's where it gets kind of tricky.
It's such a weird snowball effect. Like to have a good day, you have to have a good day. Like it doesn't really make sense, but like you have to be late in the evening and already had a good day, or else you don't have a chance to have an amazing evening. Yeah. Usually, unless you're like vibing with that confidence. It's so interesting to me. And like I said, the gap is not small. It's not like they're a little bit better. Like there's guys who throw down 15 a day. Yeah. And that is, just blows me away.
The other thing I'd say is that this is never the first thing that they're great at. Right. Like their mindset, their ability to outwork people, that's, and so I am not a believer of the quote, how you do something is how you do everything. BS. Like everyone that's good at anything, there's stuff in their life they suck at. Oh yeah. Like I love David Goggins. There are parts of his life that he is dropping the ball and that he sucks at. I am not a believer at all of that. When you make that statement too big, that the way you do something is the way you do anything, not true. But there's a big slice of truth in there is that if you can train yourself to be all in on something and to really mind, body, just soul, just get good at it, you're able to take that same mindset to other things too. You're not going to do it in everything in your life. Yeah. But these guys that are elite at Aptive, this is not the first thing they've excelled at. Yeah. And these or people that are elite that have moved on. Like we had a guy, Taylor Woodruff, that I recruited him here because he was elite selling a different product that wasn't as good of an industry. And so that the ceiling on what he could do wasn't as good. I got him over here and he broke our owner's record, his first year selling pest control, he did 913, which the owner had the record before that of 903. Uh-huh. And then Taylor Woodruff goes on to then he works for Fisher Investments, a big nationwide $1 billion, publicly traded investment firm. He breaks all of their rookie records in his first 6 months. He's currently the youngest guy, and I don't know if he's a director, but he's in a very high position there, and he's the youngest one to ever. And the moral of this story is not there's freaks in this world and you're not one of them.
Right.
The moral of this story is if you can become all in on something, and I'm definitely a growth mindset guy. You can get better at things, and if you can teach yourself, you can become elite at something. It's so much more likely that you can become elite and all in on something in the future as well.
Yeah. How often do you see someone who is amazing at something and also amazing at something else at the exact same time? You're right. It's people, it's a commitment. It's an obsession. Like we use those words like they're bad, but I love that.
Totally.
I think that a better way to say that quote would be, the way you do something you care about is how you do other things you care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I agree. I don't like the idea that, I'm an amazing pest control salesman, so I'll probably be a great artist as well at the same time. I'll just be good at everything.
Totally. You need to just pick your spots in your time of life and just focus on those.
I think one thing you said about those top guys, they have that I don't care necessarily if you buy mentality. I think a huge misunderstanding with the industry as a whole is that the top guys are dishonest.
Yeah.
I did it for 3 years. I saw 3 teams, each of my 30 guys. So it's like 90 guys. From that sample, I completely believe that it's the bottom guys that are dishonest.
Yeah.
It's the bottom guys that are cutting corners. It's the bottom guys that give it the bad rap. It's the bottom guys that come home at the end of the summer and are douches to everyone.
Yeah. And
give summer sales a bad name.
Yeah.
Like when I met, Brigham Lindsay or Travis Williams and all these people for the first time, it was like, these are normal guys. They're not like pimp my ride, big backwards hat, all of those things that come with the summer sale stigma, which I'm sure you know more than anyone. Those don't apply to the people who actually do it well.
Yeah, they're really grounded.
Yeah.
No, 100% agree. Most of the reason why people think the people at the top are liars is because it's just an excuse mindset.
Yeah.
No one wants to if they're not doing well, or if they're afraid to even try it. They don't want to live with that. Yeah. So they're like, I bet you those people that are doing what I can't, I bet you, they're just a bunch of just liars and just, stealing from old ladies.
Yeah.
But like you said, when you meet the top performers, it's the opposite. Like I have never had a top performer that I wouldn't just trust going into business with or have marry or date my sister. They are good people. And I feel like maybe you kind of have to be able to perform at that level with this job and how hard mental it is. Maybe you got to be in a good spot in other aspects of your life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I agree. The top reps, they're good people.
Well, it's rational, right? If one sale is not that big a deal to you, you wouldn't be dishonest. But if you're getting, one sale a week or whatever, that's like it.
Yeah.
You'll slip them in $100.
Maybe you're giving a half truth because you're so afraid a full truth will lose it. Yeah. Where that's a bad way to live. And these top sellers, they're not even going. They can give full truths and know they can sell a ton because that's what they do every day.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. Has there been someone that you can think of that you did not think would do good and just totally surprised you? You don't have to say their name. But.
Yeah, I know there's been plenty. Yeah, there's been that. But because the reality is, this will surprise some people. A lot of people have an idea of in summer sales, they'll hire anybody. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case, at least with us. Mm-hmm. And part of that is for their sake, but part of that is self-interested. I don't want people on teams that are just bad and suck and negative and bringing down. That just hurts the whole team. I only want people that I think will do well. Mm-hmm. So when they come in to meet, I'm getting a feel for them as they're getting a feel for this job. But I can only judge off a sliver of who they are. Yeah. Like I can get a feel if they're awkward, if they have good eye contact, if they, what I call, have a good vibe. I can ask questions about work ethic and attitude. And all of those things do matter with this job. But really what it comes down to is who, when the summer punches them in the mouth, can just keep grinding.
Yeah.
And there is no way in an interview setting. And so that's where, obviously, if they were so bad, I wouldn't have hired them.
Yeah.
But I've had some people that were on the fence, and then they got out there, and it's like they could work, and they could keep themselves mentally where they needed to be. And I've had the opposite. I every year, I shouldn't say this, people are going to start asking me, but every year I look at my crew that I'm over, and it's a pretty large number now, and I try to guess who's going to be the top rookie.
Yeah.
And I've guessed right a few times, but I've guessed real wrong, where just they seem so likable, so outgoing. They answered all the questions right, but then they get out there and they can't get out of their car.
Yeah.
It's too hot, or they're afraid of rejection. And I've failed miserably, where the guy, out of my 500 reps, I thought this guy's going to be my best rookie. And then he quit after a few days.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways, because most of what matters with this job, and I would even say in life, you can't know about someone from meeting them. Like if you hang out with them and you're around them, you can get a feel. But it's hard to first impression whether someone would do well at this job.
Yeah, I think the most common misconception about who would do well is who's outgoing.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. All my friends, again, this is also kind of an excuse from them.
Yeah.
But a lot of them will say things like, well, I would be just as good as that. Like, I'm really outgoing. I can talk to people. I'm not afraid of people. And that's like level one.
Totally. Yeah.
That's like, do you have two hands? Okay, you can cook.
Yeah.
Like you still have to learn how to cook. And so tons of people I've seen that go out, they're attractive, they're confident, and they're outgoing. I would say that's like 20% to 80% mentally tough, hardworking.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we've got, obviously, if I think outgoing probably helps you with this job slightly more than if you're an introvert.
Sure.
But it does, in the things that matter, it's so far down the way. We have top sellers here, 700 level reps. That have social anxiety around, that are extreme introverts.
Yeah.
That won't come to big gatherings. That won't get up in front of the team. But they're able, and so obviously there probably is a higher level of comfort on the doors for those people. But their ability just to work and get good at the pitch and master the skills that we teach. And so, there's ideas of what matters with this job. But people would be shocked if I put them in a room with our top 100 reps. They'd be shocked at the variance of different types of people that we have that do really, really well.
Yeah, I remember one of the weirdest feelings. My second year of knocking, sold 250, which was the second best on my team.
Which is good. Yeah,
it's really good, especially when you consider it to the industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's top 15%, 20%. Yeah.
And so I remember thinking, okay, I'm pretty good at this. And I was second best on my team, but Brandon was the best, and he was one of the top in the whole company. So I remember thinking, I'm comparing myself against Michael Jordan. Maybe I'm Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
And then I went to the 250 incentive trip, Dominican Republic. And then it's a 250 incentive trip. Yeah. Which means literally I was the bottom rung. And being in that room, there's maybe 100, 150 guys that went that year, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, not just humbling, but also a weird perspective to be in there and to switch from hey, I'm Scottie Pippen to I'm a rookie. Yeah. I didn't even make the team. I'm playing in the G League. Yeah. And everyone there was, you go talk to someone, this guy's nerdy. Oh, he sold 380. Oh, okay. Totally. Everyone I talked to, I'm a rookie. I didn't do that good, just 415. I'm like, oh my goodness. The perspective of who you compare yourself against is disheartening sometimes, but also can inflate you in the wrong way.
Totally. It's all about paradigm. Yeah. And if you think it can help you, if that raises what you think is possible, you're so much more likely to hit that.
Well, I completely believe that if I wasn't on the team with Brandon, that I would have, just had a way less summer. And then the next year, because I went on that trip, I had a much better summer because, it's true. You run faster when the guy next to you is running faster too.
Totally.
What do you do now to keep yourself, the hard thing, to sharpen the saw? What is your thing?
So I would say those are two different things for me, the hard thing and the sharpen the saw.
Okay.
The sharpen the saw is I'm all about, I look at that more knowledge-based. Mm-hmm. That I want to make sure if I'm not continuing to learn and get smarter and improve myself, then people are passing me up. Like I'm ultra competitive. And so that's actually a big reason that I read is because I want to make sure that I'm not letting chumps pass me in skill level and capability level and that when an opportunity presents itself that I'm ready. And so I would say I read and listen to books a ton. On doing hard things, I would say right now where I'm at, I mean, I did the marathon last year. This year, I'm a lot more focused on just being hardcore on diet and exercise, and so where I'm in the best shape of my life and I turned 36 in a few months. And so that's been, I feel like, really good and healthy for me just to really focus in on that. But I would just also say, I don't shy away from the hard things about my job. Like a lot of guys try to want to get up in summer sales higher so they don't have to be in the grind, in the recruiting anymore, in the training. But I love that battle. I love it when a guy is looking at different companies and he's looking at Aptive. It's like, let's go. I can get him. We can get him. We're better. I'm better. And so that's one thing is as I've risen in the company, I think it's healthy for me to always keep doing the same sort of things that where I started, to know what they're doing and to stay good at those things. Yeah. But I love that. I would say you've got to be competitive with your job at least I do in order to enjoy it. I am not a guy like today's a Monday. I have no oh, it's a Monday. Like I'm stoked it's a Monday. I've got a week of fun stuff and I never look forward to the weekends. I think you can find a job that you can just get all in on where you're excited to be in, even in the hard, stressful parts. Like I get stressed. Like my job is stressful. Right. And my wife will sense that stress sometimes and be like, Tosh, like you make good money. Like how long do you think you're going to do this for? And I tell her, I'm like, yeah, I'm stressed right now, but the stress makes me feel alive. Yeah. I'm going to do this as long as I enjoy it. And I think that's going to be for a long time just because don't shy away from stress. Don't shy away from competition. I think once you embrace it and get good at it, then, but I told her the other day when I was having this conversation with her that I said, if I got a job offer that was the most chill job in the world, let's say Zions Bank wanted to pay me my same amount of money I make a year just to be a teller 9 to 5. Right. I'm like, I would tell him no. Right. I'm like, it would be no stress. And I need challenges. I need to lose sometimes. I need to win sometimes. I need to push myself. And so that was another answer. That's the hard thing. I think find a job that you think's hard and it keeps it a lot more fresh and fun.
I think there's kind of an interesting kind of paradox there that you mentioned where, like Tosh, you make all this good money. Why don't you just stop? It's stressful and whatever. And I think the people that think that at the get-go, hey, once I make X amount of dollars, then I'll stop. Yeah. The paradox is those people don't have the mindset to get to that point. Yeah. And the people who have the mindset that they won't stop for anything are the ones that do get to that point, but they're also the ones who aren't satisfied,
Yeah, totally.
It's like Jeff Bezos could retire and live 500 years and spend $1 million a day and be fine.
But he'd be bored, and that's not how he's wired. Yeah.
And I think people that don't, like when they look at people that make a lot of money and they don't, I think they misjudge the way that they think about money. Yeah. Because kind of a more scarcity mindset person, it's like, money, I just need it. Like I need it to survive. I need it to pay my bills. And once I have this level, then I don't need it. Yeah. Whereas people that are abundance mindset, they don't need it at all. They're just like, I don't even necessarily need money. I just like a challenge, and money is the scoreboard.
Totally. And I think, 100%. And that's part of the score. That's part of beating your previous year. I think that in order to stay in a good place, as you make good money, you got to find other good causes to do with it too.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's been something that I think I've tried to focus on because I've observed where money has ruined some people. And so I think you want to be somebody, not to go too religious, but that God trusts with money.
Yeah.
And that he knows you're going to do good things with it. And if you only get that mindset when you have a bunch, then it's too late. I think as you're growing, you've got to be someone that's looking for opportunities, organizations, way to volunteer, and that you have a mindset that you're already giving money to great causes. Because I am a big believer that keeps you grounded and it keeps you where you can be all about raising that scoreboard, but you're still helping society. And again, to wrap around to religious, I think God trusts those people. And good things happen to them. Yeah,
I agree. I don't want to take your whole night, but I did want to. You touched on your infertility story. Maybe we could close on that. Like, okay. What is that you were talking about?
I just say, no matter who you are, I have a great life. I love my life, absolutely. But life will throw you curveballs. And I remember, it was a few years ago. I mean, this is probably 5 years ago, but I was with my high school friends. And we were coming back from one of our friends' parents' funerals. And I just remember thinking, I love these guys and I've gone through some great times with these guys. But there we were, and one of my friends in that car just got a divorce. One of my friends in that car his mom had just died. You know, one of my friends in that car had dealt with some addiction stuff at the moment. And that my thing was that, we had had recently multiple miscarriages and it looked like we weren't going to have kids. And I remember just sitting there thinking, and it's just that phrase, like life throws everybody curveballs. Like no matter who you are, that's just part of life. And that was one of my curveballs that I was the oldest of 7 kids. Like I always wanted a giant family. And then it just so happened that, we had lots of doctors tell us we couldn't have kids. And then we did lots of fertility treatments and it's expensive. But again, I think God put me in a position where I was able to even do that. But round after round after round of not working and how mentally and emotionally taxing that can be. And it's even harder on the woman because she's got hormones part of it. She's got, I think rightly or wrongly, but I say rightly, like there's just these mother instincts as part of who they are, even maybe more than father instincts.
I agree, yeah.
And so just dealing with all that was hard, but through prayer, through some miracles, and I could give a whole podcast on this, but we had fertility treatments that finally worked, but then the curveball wasn't done. My son, his placenta and his cords giving him, nutrients weren't working. And so they realized he was dying in there. And so they had to do an emergency C-section at 32 weeks when he was measuring like way smaller. So he weighed just 2 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
And then, he was
2 pounds.
Yeah. So it was just tiny, like the size of my hand.
Yeah. Wow.
And just looked not even like a baby.
Yeah.
And misshapen, to be real, because when a baby in the womb is getting lack of nutrients, they'll give it first to their brain. So his head was measuring close to normal size. And then his body was measuring like 2 weeks behind. And then his limbs were measuring 4 weeks behind because it's naturally going to give the nutrients to the most.
Sure.
But and that was, we had lots of people telling us and educated opinions that he wasn't going to make it. But he cutting to the chase here through miracles, but months in the NICU in the intensive care for babies. He made it, and now he's 9 and just a little stud.
Your first child?
Yeah. And like life throws you curveballs, but I think if you stick with it, that good things happen. And then even since then, like our fertility stuff, it got harder and harder to have kids. We didn't have one almost die again. But we've had, I guess, in some sense we had miscarriages and things and have a hard time getting pregnant. But at the same time, I'm really, really open about it because it's actually pretty common, infertility stuff. And I think there's a stigma to it that I try to, hey, it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The other side of it is that I'm actually really grateful for the infertility, for the curveballs, because I think it makes you appreciate things better in life. When I was a punk high schooler that everything came easy to, I was not nearly the type of person that could have been the father that I became after dealing with those things.
Absolutely.
And my appreciation for my kids and for life and for being able to understand people's hard times. And I feel that's the Cliff Notes version, right. But yeah, that has changed me in a good way.
Yeah. So you can probably hear my son. We just had a baby 10 weeks ago today. And emergency C-section as well. He was on time. He was induced, but his heart rate dropped really dramatically in the hospital. Was like a 5-minute from
scary stuff.
We're taking you from your room. We're sprinting you down the hallway. We're getting this baby out. And I mean, you get emotional thinking about it, especially because it's only 10 weeks ago. But I remember sitting in the room and the doctor said his heart stopped.
Yeah.
And
it's the worst thing you'd ever want to hear.
And I can hear him talking, and at this point, we're in the middle of a C-section. There's no bedside manner. And so they're, grab the saw and da-da-da, and they're yelling back and forth at each other, and they're like, his heart stop. And so even just in that moment, just having to, I guess, accept that for a split second, because a second later, he came out and he was crying, and they're like, oh my gosh. And you could hear all the doctors start laughing and everything, and we all our shoulders drop. But even that moment, I actually feel like that moment alone kind of changed me, because he had to face the fact that maybe he wasn't alive, and it's scary, but you're right. It adds a perspective, I remember when he was 32 weeks or something like that. I don't remember. We had his brain scan, and it came back that they thought maybe he had a brain developmental issue. I don't remember exactly what it was called. And so they told us to come back in 2 weeks because they'd be able to tell if they compared the two. Yeah. But they said most likely he'll have cognitive disabilities. Most likely not Down syndrome, but something. I think it's muscular dystrophy or something like that. Uh-huh. They said your kid is most likely going to have that. So just deal with that. Yeah. Walking out of the hospital, all the obvious emotions, sad. Sad and kind of angry and guilty in a weird way. We didn't do it right somehow. We don't have good genetics or something. And then by the time 2 weeks came, he was fine. And they said, yeah, it's awesome. He's fine. He's totally normal. His cognitive function is off the charts, which is great. But having those 2 weeks, I know that this doesn't compare to all miscarriages and infertility, and so it's kind of like a microcosm of what you're saying. But even having those 2 weeks, we're hey, let's accept the fact that we might have a mentally handicapped kid, or let's accept the fact that we might be living with this kid till he's 50. And we didn't have to, but the fact that we lived through that reality, it totally has changed the way that we think completely. The way we think about him, our relationship, just being a dad.
I think it just makes you soul search and realize what really is important, what matters, and just it grounds you. It puts you where, I think it totally relates. That it just puts you in a better position just to, the hard things, they shouldn't be avoided, and sometimes you should seek them. Sometimes life throws them at you, but I think that you always come out of them better off than you were before you had them. Yeah,
I think the idea of avoiding hard things is kind of, I guess we could make that the theme of what we've talked about. Do you listen to Jocko? Yeah. Jocko, David Goggins.
I liked Jocko a lot more when I read The Dichotomy of Leadership. I haven't
read that one. I've only read the first one.
Yeah, read the second.
Yeah, it's better?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read that one. But yeah, I think like most people, like you feel anxiety or something. And I found with myself, really the only cure that I have to any insecurity or anxiety or something like that is always to lean into that thing.
Yeah.
Like I had a fear of public speaking. And so I was like, okay, either I live the rest of my life pretending I'm sick when I get called on to give my testimony, or I'll go give my testimony 10 times in a Sunday. And that's what we did. Went to Toastmasters and we'd go to different wars and bear my testimony different. And who's this guy? But the leaning in, you look behind the mask and there's nothing there and there's nothing to be afraid of. But it's true. Just by doing hard things and staring at them and looking at them, you realize that you're not really scared of a real thing,
Totally.
You're scared of, I don't even know what you're scared of, but the only way I've found is to run right at the thing.
Yeah.
If you avoid it at all, it becomes powerful, it feels like.
Totally. And again, even if it doesn't end how you want, there's satisfaction in knowing I went after it.
Yeah.
And that you didn't, that's just who you want to be. You want to be someone that just goes after it and not someone that's a wuss.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you being on the podcast with me. If anyone that's listening to this wants to, be part of your squad, they want to do summer sales or even just want to support you in any way, what can they do to find you, to support you?
Social media wise, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, on Facebook, just Tosh Mackintosh. That's kind of easy guy to find. There's not many Tosh Mackintoshes out there.
I actually thought that was a nickname.
It's 100% real, yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
I thought your name was, I didn't know.
Something else.
Brandon.
No, that's really
common. It's actually Tosh.
Yeah. So I'd be easy to find on social media, Tosh Mackintosh. You could also always, if you wanted to email me, Tosh@GoAptive. And I'm a super social guy. Whether you want to work for Aptive or if you want to talk about anything else we've talked about, I'd be happy if anyone reached out.
Awesome. Thanks for doing it, Tosh.
Yep, that was fun.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
I'm game.